We're up to Amar Abaya on Lamed Hey Amid Beis. About 10 lines from the bottom. Amar Abaya, Hashda Amrit Ein Ritzicha Doiches Shabbos. Now that we've seen, like we just saw in the previous Gemara, we saw from Moshe Seichem. It says Leisavaroish B'chol Moshe Seichem, which says Moshe Seichem. The Gabe Ritzicha. Ritzicha meaning execution, a court ordered execution. So that it says that, and it says Leisavaru. So we learned that from Moshe Seichem by Ritzicha that when it says here Leisavaroish B'chol Moshe Seichem, it's telling you shouldn't do an execution on Shabbos. It's not going to be Deicha Shabbos. So, fact Abaya, Hashravat Ein Ritzicha Deicha Shabbos, Ein Ritzicha Deicha Avoida B'Kal V'Chayim. Let's learn out that similarly, the execution by Deicha Avoida, doing karbanis from a Kal V'Chayim. U'ma Shabbos Shenitcha Mipnei Avoida. Certainly, if Shabbos is Dachi B'Fnei Avoida, right, that we bring a Musaf and a Talmud on Shabbos, Ein Ritzicha Deicha Isa, yet Ritzicha, like we just said, is not Deicha Shabbos. Avoida Shi Deicha Shabbos. Avoida Deicha Shabbos, and it didn't show like Ritzicha Deicha Isa. Ritzicha should not be Deicha Avoida, meaning somebody who's on the Mizbech, who's in the middle of Avoida, should be excused from being from paying for his crimes. He shouldn't have to be. He would be excused from getting killed by the Bezdin.
Are we looking that far, or are we just saying that you don't take him off while he's doing the Avodah? No, we would allow.
No, it's not a permanent. It's not right. As long as you're doing the Avodah, you should wait. I'm just trying to make it a little more dramatic. Yeah. It's like tomorrow, but the Gemara. Good morning. We're on Lamed Hey Amid Beis. Yeah. So continuing with the sugya that we had discussed yesterday, Lamed Hey Amid Beis by the bottom, Rabbiya. So we had just said that you don't do Ritzicha. Again, Ritzicha in the context of this Gemara means a public execution, an execution by Bezdin. It's not Deicha Shabbos. We just learned that out, and we said that we have seen that Avodah is Deicha Shabbos because we bring a carbon musaf and a carbon talmud on Shabbos. So if that's the case, then Ritzicha should not be Deicha Avodah. If someone's in the middle of doing Avodah, they shouldn't be taken out to be executed from a Kal V'Chayim. If Avodah, like we just said, right? If Avodah is Deicha Shabbos and Ritzicha is not Deicha Shabbos, so that means Ritzicha should not be Deicha Avodah. Zaktumara. But the problem is, we had seen when we first brought up this topic of Ritzicha being Deicha Avodah, we said there's a pasuk. So someone who's on the Mizbeach will be taken from it to be killed. So the Torah clearly says that Ritzicha is Deicha Avodah. Even if someone's in the middle of Avodah, he's taken off the Mizbeach to be killed. No. Ahu l'karban yachid d'loy Deicha Shabbos. That could be limited. Maybe that which we say, let's learn a Kal V'Chayim. This is a proposition. Let's say the Kal V'Chayim will tell me that generally Ritzicha will not be Deicha Avodah. But that which the Torah says that it is only by a carbon yachid. We said that a carbon musaf and a carbon talmud are brought on Shabbos. Those are karbanos tzibur. Those are Deicha Shabbos. And a carbon yachid, we're going to see it's not clear, but there we would assume that a person can't decide, I'm bringing a shlomim, I'm going to bring a taida, I'm going to bring a carbon on Shabbos. So those karbanos, if those are the ones that if a person is bringing them during the week, we're going to take him and execute him in spite of his being in the middle of that avodah. But avodah of carbon tzibur, a person that would cause us to push off the Ritzicha. Amar Rava, lo yitehei Ritzicha deicha carbon yachid mikal v'chayim. Even a carbon yachid, Ritzicha should not be deicha. you want to be mechalik, you Abaye were trying to suggest that we're going to make a distinction. The Kal V'Chomer should tell us that a carbon tzibur should not be deicha, or should not, a carbon tzibur should not be nidcha in front of Ritzicha. I'm going to tell you that even a carbon yachid, Ritzicha should not be deicha. Because why? My Yom Tov shenif the carbon yachid, a Ritzicha deicha isa. A person does bring a carbon yachid on Yom Tov. It's right. We bring if a person brings a chagiga, he brings other karbanos, and even so, ein ritzicha daichesai carbon yachid shu mal Yom Tov shenitcha b'nei carbon yachid. Yom Tov is nitcha by a carbon yachid, and still ein ritzicha daichesai. The din that we had said that ritzicha is not done on Shabbos would apply to Yom Tov as well. Like Rashi says the aim ben Yom Tov l'Shabbos al oichol nefesh v'lvad, but ritzicha is not oichol nefesh clearly. So just like ritzicha is also on Shabbos, when we learned from Moshe Seichem that ritzicha is also on Shabbos, that will apply to Yom Tov as well. Carbon yachid shu doicha es Yom Tov ein edin shaloi tehei ritzicha doicha isai. So carbon yachid, since it's doicha Yom Tov, it should also ritzicha should be doicha it. So and then. This is a problem, right? To say that where we had to justify the pasuk that says that maybe the only way we were able to justify that pasuk in the face of the Kal V'Chomer, which was suggesting that we should do Ritzicha on Shabbos, well, it said by mechalik between carbon yachid and carbon tzibur. But if you take away the chiluk and you say carbon yachid also, you're going to have the Kal V'Chomer. Then what is the pasuk telling you? So this is good according to the Manda Amma that Yitaka cannot bring a carbon yachid on Yom Tov. So if that's the case, so then you don't have this Kal V'Chomer. We said because Yom Tov is nidcha b'pnei carbon yachid. That's only if you say you could bring a Nadarim and Davis on Yom Tov. I said before chagiga, but that's not really accurate. I mean, what I meant to say is shlomim. A person can decide to bring a carbon shlom stamazah. Eleman.
Chagiga is brought on Yom Tov, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember. Did we have it in this Masechta? Did we just have chagiga? No, I think I just had it in Megillah. I learned at night Megillah. I think we just had this din of Megillah of chagiga. Chagiga is brought on Yom Tov. It's not brought on Shabbos. If Shabbos comes out on Yom Tov, then you push it off till the next day. There's the whole Gemara about if it falls out. If Shabbos is on Shavuos, so you don't have any other days of Yom Tov. We learn that from a pasuk. You could bring the carbon chagiga for a full week. That's why it's a little tumult in my head. But yeah, but a regular a carbon chagiga, but I don't think a carbon chagiga is considered a carbon yachid. That's what I think it's. I don't know. I don't see Rashi or Tosfos talking about the carbon chagiga. So that's tomorrow. So it's all good if you say Nadarim and Davis can't be brought on Yom Tov. So in the Chanami, it's true that you can't bring it's going to be the case that you can't bring karbonis yachid on Yom Tov, and therefore carbon yachid will be it will not be deicha ritzicha. So that's what it means. We'll be talking about a carbon yachid, right? Otherwise, it's a very wealthy guy. It's a Rockefeller. It's a Rothschild. He'll line up 1,000 shepselach to bring a shlomim, and as soon as whenever the bailiffs come to take him away for his execution, he's going to say, "Oh, I got another shlom coming up. I'm busy now." I think it's really only the kain who's doing the avodah anyway, but you get my point. We're still going to have the same problem that what is mizbechi tikhanu lamos, since all types of karbanis, both shel tzibur and shel Yachid are Deicha Shabbos, so therefore they're both they should both be Deicha the Avaida. Lamarava loimi by it. Lema man Damanadavas craving be Yomtiv. Not Nishnar according to the man Da'amah, who said Nadavas Abraham. The Halai Miskayim is Bechi Klap. In that case, like we just said, there would be we would have a Kal V'chaimer that it should be Deicha, that Ritzicha should be Deichet. And then you don't have, I'm sorry, that should be Deicha Ritzicha. And therefore, like the sky me is bechi at all. Alfilu man dam davas ein krevim biyamtev. Haksim mizbechi mim izbechi. Haksim mim izbechi. Mizbechi hama yichadli. Amay niu tamid. Amar Rabba Rachmana mim izbechi tekechanu lamas. He would say that it would be. I would say it's talking about specifically the carbon tamid. Me'im mizbechi is referring to the carbon tamid. So on that. So let's see the way Rashi says it. El Amar Rava al karchach asa me'im mizbechi va'akre lekal v'chaimer. It must be that me'im mizbechi is contradicting the entire kal v'chaimer, that we're trying to say that a kal v'chaimer that executions should not be deicha avoida. Me'im mizbechi says faket. Be'im carbon yachid, be'im carbon sil. The loy mi ba'il man the amar craven. To keep in the carbon yachid deicha yomtiv. Yas l'midrash kal v'chaimer loy mesuka me'im mizbechi klal. V'kach l'tish kal v'chaimer v'asa krav v'akre. Alafil man the amar. The ikal look m'lekrav carbon yachid the leka kal v'chaimer. Carbon tzibur le'boy look m'lekrav mishum kal v'chaimer al kachach b'shmeusa misukam nami b'carbon tzibur. It must be talking about also carbon tzibur. The mizbechi mashma hamichli. The hainu tamichu ikar kol hakarbanis. He says that from the lashon of the pasuk, it's clear. It's talking about kol hakarbanis. It's talking about also a carbon tamid, and it's negating the possibility of making kal v'chaimer. There's no way to distinguish between a carbon yachid and a carbon tzibur because the pasuk itself that we're learning from says it's talking about a carbon tzibur. You might have said maybe you were trying to come up with a way to say carbon yachid is not included in mei mizbechi, but he says no. The pasuk itself, mei mizbechi, refers to a carbon tamid, which is a carbon tzibur. Dr. Maravait. We're up on Lamed Vav Amid Aleph by the two dots. Dine Mominus ha Tmeis v'ha Tahiris. The Mishnah said that Dine Mominus ha Tmeis v'ha Tahiris maschilim ha'gadol dine fashos machilim maschilim min atzad. When they would have the din Torah by Dine Mominus and Tuma and Torah, they would start from the biggest person, whoever was the greatest dayan, and he would give his opinion first. But by Dina Nefashis, as we're going to see later in the next Gemara, you start from the end of the bench, the least prominent person, because we don't want, if the greatest person says that he's chayiv, we're scared everyone else is going to be intimidated and they won't disagree with him. So Amar Rav Anna, Havoi b'minyana debei Rebbe, I was sitting by the minyan of Rebbe, where they were deciding certain minhagim. And they started by me, even though I was obviously much lesser than Rebbe. They started at the end, Bereisha, and this is not talking about Dinin Nefashis. This is talking about where they got together to decide certain halachas. So for Gemara we said on Dinei Mominus and on Tmeis with Tahiris, anything other than Dinei Nefashis, you start from the Gadol, which is sensible. You start from the most chashuv person. Amram Breder Rava v'Teimer Rebbe Hillel Breder Valas Shani Minyana Debei Rebbe. When they got together by Rebbe to decide these issues, the Kula Minyana Minatzat have a maskali. Rashi says they always started from the least, because Rebbe was a very big anav. This is from the great anivus of Rebbe that he required that they start from the side. Amar Rabba Breder Rava v'Teimer Rebbe Hillel Breder Valas. Moshe had Rebbe from the time of Moshe to Rebbe loy matzinu tayru gdula b'makam echad. This is like in contrast to what we just said, that Rebbe was the biggest anav, which is usually the case. He had the least reason to be an anav. He was the no one else from Moshe Rabbeinu until Rebbe, where they were both the Nasi, they were the leader of Klal Yisrael, as well as the Gadol Adar, the greatest in Torah. In fact, the Gemara of Eloi, V'ahavi Yeshua. There was also Yeshua. The Yeshua was also a Gadol. I mean, Yeshua also was the leader of Klal Yisrael and the Gadol Hadar. So Gemara Havi Elazar. Elazar was Yeshua's equal in learning in Torah. So even though Yeshua was Taka, the leader of Klal Yisrael, but he wasn't the exclusive Gadol Adar, he had a partner. V'ahava Pinchas. Pinchas was also l'chayra, the leader of Klal Yisrael as well as the Gadol. No, have the Skenim were equal to Pinchas in learning. V'ahava Shaul. Shaul was Torah Gdula. Have a Shmuel. Shmuel was Shmuel wasn't even his equal. Shmuel was his Rebbe. He was he dictated. He was the one who appointed him as the Melech. In fact, the Marav Nafshe. How could you say that Shmuel was at the same time as Shaul, but Shmuel died while Shaul was alive? So there was a period of time where Shaul was the Gadol Hadar and that only the unquestioned Talmud Chacham, that, and as well as the king of Yidden. So he was the leader as well as being the only Gadol Hadar after Shmuel died. So we mean to say is that the entire time of his leadership, he was also the Gadol Hadar. David. When I saw this, I was thinking we're going to say David was the Gadol Hadar. Vice from this, we didn't ask on Shaul that David was his equal in learning. I say Shaul was greater than David in learning, right? Because we asked from Shmuel, and we said Shmuel wasn't all he is. What about David? Then we're now asking a separate question. What about David? David was also the leader of Klal Yisrael as well as the Talmud Chacham, the Gadol Adar. We don't ask it as him as a contrast as a kasha on Shaul.
We're opposite. How can you say David?
Well, David didn't become the leader of Klal Yisrael until Shaul died. So there's no overlap.
So you wouldn't be able to say Kulishnei as a teretz.
Right, we wouldn't be able to say the teretz. No, we're saying, I think the point is that someone who's both the Gadol Hadar and
during his reign, his full reign.
So, and in any case, David, there was also Haveira Hayeiri. He was his equal in Chachma. Vanach Nafshe, Kulishna Kamrin, and we mean to say that his whole time of his reign. Vahava Shleima was also Gadol Adar and the Nasi. Havashami Ben Gera, he was his equal in learning. Vakatle, he was killed. Kulishne Kamrin. Vahava Cheskia was also Gadol B'Torah Gdul B'Makam Echad. Shivna. We all remember the story of Shivna from a few blot ago. So this is interesting, right? We saw Shivna. That was a story where they were trapped in Yerushalayim, and Shivna was saying a bigger shir than Chizkiah, and he sent out the arrow to the Nebuchadnezzar. There was a Radin, Nebuchadnezzar, someone's coming to destroy them. I think it was Nebuzaradan. But in any case, and he went out to greet him, and everyone left. No one joined. The Malach came and closed the door behind him, and he got killed. But he was a Rasha, right? There was a whole story there that he betrayed Chizkiah. But we're saying it's because of the fact that he had a greater shir, that more people came to listen to him, he must have been the equal in learning of Chizkiah. So it's interesting that we would say someone's Torah Gdula, that he was a Gadol Hadar, in spite of the fact that he ended badly. It doesn't show that from the beginning he was no good.
He went off the D, please.
What?
He went off the D.
He went off the OTD. Va'ikdel, he was also killed, like we just said. Kulishna Kamrin. Va'ave Ezra, Nechemia ben Chachla. He also had someone else who was a leader. Just like from Moshe to Rabbi, there was no one. From Rabbi to Rabbi Ashi, there was no one. Huna Bar Nasan was also a Nasi together with Rav Ashi. Even though he was a leader, but he still was subservient. Yeah, those of us in Chaim Berlin, I guess, is just an inside thing. It's like Rabbi Yossi Haliwa is Rosh Shiva, and Rabbi Fink is Rosh Shiva. But Lamaisa, Rabbi Haliwa, the one who has the name Haliwa, is the real Rosh Shiva. Like, what? Yeah. Or I could say,
No. Okay.
is that a joke? Really, it's just a fact that it's not acknowledged, but it's just the way it is. We said the other way around that Dine Nefashis, you start from the end. Like we said the reason for it is that people won't be scared to express their opinion. Therefore, we start from the end of the row, from the least chashuv person. It says you shouldn't respond to an argument. You shouldn't answer to a Rav. You shouldn't have the Rav say first, and then other people have to answer to him. David said to his men, everyone should strap on their sword. But then afterwards, everyone else did it, and then David did it afterwards. So you see, you start from the lesser, and then you go to the greater. Amarav, a person is allowed, if someone has a Rebbe, he could teach the halachas to his Talmud, and then the Talmud can be a judge together with him. There's no problem with a person judging together with his Talmud in Dinei Nefashos, a halacha that he had taught him. By Tyrus and Tumas, meaning by a psak halacha, like when you go to your Rav. If you have a Rav and a Talmud that are both on the Din Torah that's pasking on Tyrus, Tumas, and Tyrus, they could be counted as two because be'etzim you only need one. They just decided to convene a bezdin in order to be able to have a vote to try to figure out what the roiv is. But be'etzim it could be done by a single Rav, so therefore it's not a problem to have two people, a father and a son, or a Rav and Talmud, paskin together. However, dinei mamonos, dinei nefashos, dinei makos, we got to be giving malchus, kiddush hachodesh, giving whether we're mekadesh the chodesh to see the new moon, the Iber Shana, whether we're going to add on an extra month to the year. If the father and son they pray him, or a Rav and Talmud, where the Rav is telling the Talmud what to do, they're not going to be counted as two separate votes. It's only going to be one vote. That's not like what we just said. We just said they counted as two. So that's not we keep coming Rav, going Rav Kahana, Ravasi. We're talking about like Talmud, like Rav Kahana was the Rebbe or Ravasi. The ligmarei, the Rav have a trichi. He needs the Rav to tell him what the facts, what the Torah says. The ligmarei, the Rav loy have a trichi. Ravasi was a big lamdan, and he could, once he knew what the halachas were, he was able to extrapolate how it would apply in different cases. So to learn that, had to be on the same din Torah, where the Rav, even on Dinei Nefashos, where the Rav told him, the Torah says you're not allowed to kill. And he says, will that also apply in this case? So even though he's his Rav and he told him the fact the Torah says Lo Sirtzach, but if he's applying his own logic to how to apply that to the case, that's not considered to be that he's coming from the Rav, and it's all considered to be one vote in the Din Torah. Amr Vavo. Asara Dvarim Yesh Ben Dinei Mamonos L'Dinei Nefashos. If you remember back at the beginning of this parak, we had a long list in the Mishnah of all the different things. First we said Echad Dinei Mamonos V'Echad Dinei Nefashos B'Dusha B'Chakira. Then we say, but Ma Ben Dinei Mamonos L'Dinei Nefashos. We said Dinei Mamonos is B'Shloisha, Dinei Nefashos B'Eser B'Shloisha. And then we said whether you Paisel L'Schus Ben L'Chayva, whether you Paisel L'Schus Ben Paisel L'Chayva. And we said 10 different nafkaminas between Dinei Mamonos and Dinei Nefashos in the Mishnah. So Dr. Gumbar. Amra Bavo started to make Dinei Mamonos and Dinei Nefashos. So cool in a Hagen B'Shar Haniskol Chutz Me Eser B'Shloisha. all of the Dinei Nefashos do not apply to Shar Niskal, except for the fact that you make the Din Torah with 23 Dayanim. But everything else about a Shar that killed someone, that the Shar has to get killed, you can follow the rules of a Dinei Mamnis, because all these things of Dinei Nefashos, they all come out to that we're worried about finding someone guilty. The Torah says you have to be very careful not to convict someone of Dinei Nefashos. That doesn't apply to a cow. As you know, cows get killed just to make a steak all the time. It's not a problem. But the Torah was said you have to teach, you have to do 23, so you use the bezin of 23. But the rest of it doesn't apply. Minani mili, amravacha bar papa, da amakra, lisatem mishpat evyenecha berivai. You shouldn't turn to the mishpat, you shouldn't give precedence or lean toward the mishpat for a poor person when he's in an argument. Now, this is clear. The Torah says in other places that you can't favor one party in a Din Torah. So we dash from it, mishpat evyenecha yatamata v'latamata mishpat shel shar niskal. It's okay by shar niskal, you can lean the bezin. It doesn't mean lean that you could say listen, we're all hungry, so let's kill the steak, kill the cow. It happens to be, it's asa b'hana. But the point is, we don't have the same protections of Dinei Nefashos. What the Torah is telling you, you don't have the protections that you normally have on Dinei Nefashos to make it harder to convict someone. Those don't apply to a Shar Niskal. Fact Gemara, but what about we said? There were Asar Dvarim between Dinei Mamnis and Dinei Nefashos. Asara hates hava. Well, it's not 10, it's 9. Like, what are you talking about? Asar Tani. We said 10 in the Mishnah, so why are you saying it's 9? So the last din in the Mishnah that we said between Dinei Mamnis and Nefashos is that Dinei Nefashos has to be ksherin. It can't be a mamzer. And Dinei Nefashos, Dinei Mamnis can be even with a mamzer. And the first din was that you have to have 23. That which there's a din that you can't use a mamzer is only because it's a bezin of 23. It's a din of Sanhedrin. When you have a Sanhedrin, the Sanhedrin cannot include someone who's a mamzer. So we're saying once you said it has to be Dinei Nefashos with 23, that includes the din of mamzer. So those are really the same. So we only have 9 in the Mishnah. So Gemara, no. Ha'ika achriti. There is an additional nafkamina de Tanya. Ein ma'shivim Sanhedrin zaken b'sris umin she'en le'banim. You can't place in a Sanhedrin a zaken, someone who's elderly, or someone who has no children, and someone who doesn't, who's not capable of having children, or someone who doesn't have children. So all of these things, they're not. Now you immediately ask yourself, we just said mamzer is the same thing as Sanhedrin, and now you're saying the same, another similar din that you can't be moishev in a Sanhedrin. For these people that they're precluded, it's not mamzer is not because of anything to do with trying to protect the guilty party. That's just a din of Sanhedrin. That's not bakavadik for Sanhedrin. He's precluded from being of Sanhedrin. But this is again something that we're trying to protect a guilty, from a conviction, because someone who's old is a little bit fakir than we would think. Someone who's older has less sympathy. He's been through everything. He's seen everything. Generally the young people vote Democrat. The older people vote Republican. They're the law and order party. And Tzuris and Misha Ein Labanim, someone who's not capable, who doesn't have children, also is not as much of a Merachem. That's the same thing like we say on Yom Neroim, that we don't take a Chazan who doesn't have children. Rabbi Yehuda Moisef Af Achzari, he also adds not just somebody who we deduce is not going to be a Merachem, but even someone who we just know he's a tough guy is not allowed to be a dayan on a Sanhedrin. So this is the 10th thing that's the difference between Dinei Mamnis and Dinei Nefashos. We don't have this consideration by Dinei Mamnis. B'chilufei b'mesis. And it's going to be the opposite way by a mesis. Not that, we don't want to take this too far. That which we said, you take someone who's not Merachem, you're not allowed to take someone on a Sanhedrin and Dinei Nefashos, you can take him by a mesis. I don't think it means that you have to find someone who doesn't have children and who's an achzari. That doesn't seem fair. You shouldn't have rachmanis on him. What is that including? Like we just said. fact, the Gemara Tzinacha the Zimna Kol Roy Lodin Din Nefashos Roy Lodin Din Imamis V'Yesh Roy Lodin Din Imamis Ve'Ein Roy Lodin Din Nefashos. There are those who are excluded from being dan din nefashos who can be dan din imamis. V'avinam ba lasuya mai, and we asked who's that? What is that referring to? It's coming to tell you that a mamzer can be being do din nefashos. It can't do din nefashos, and he can't do din imamis. So why do we have to say it again over here? Kol ksher and lodin din imamis, and to say a mamzer. He says no. It's not necessarily over here that we're talking about a mamzer. We could be talking about a ger. It means someone who's pasal lavi bakal, or he's not part of the kal. Utricha, and you need both of them. The yash meaning ger, the roy lavi bakal. A ger is allowed to marry a kosher yid. He's not allowed to marry a kohen, but he can marry someone who's not a mamzer. A mamzer aim aloi, but maybe a mamzer is more of a psul, and he's excluded. The yash meaning mamzer the bami tipik shera. A mamzer is the son of yidin. Avoker, the loy bami tipik shera ger, who's not child of yidin aim aloi. So tzricha, it's coming to tell you both of them are excluded from being a dayan and din in nefashos. Ve'ena kol ksherin lodin din in nefashos. Not everyone is kosher to be dan in nefashos. My timer. What is the reason? Just like the bezdin has to be menukah, it has to be free of any partiality. It has to be entirely just, provide justice. Kach menukah mikol mum. You have to be tzaddikim. You also have to be menukah from any flaw, and therefore they can't be a mamzer. Amar meima mikra. Kulcha yafa rayasi. You're entirely beautiful, my dear. Umum einbach, and you don't have a mum. So say that's referring to Sanhedrin that there's no bali mum and there's no mamzer.
So someone will say is limping that type of mum.
So it's affecting more of a dilma mum mamish. You're right on top of it. That's the Gemara's next question. Maybe it's talking about someone who has a mum, a physical mum. Amar Bacha Bar Yaakov Amakra v'siyatzu sham imcha b'doimim. It's the Torah says that by Moshe Rabbeinu, when he appointed the dayanim, they have to be doimah to him.
And that was referring to also without.
Yeah, that's talking about the daimah. I wasn't talking about with. Now I was wondering if that means because Moshe Rabbeinu was kavad sosayim. Yeah, so maybe he had a mum, but the Gemara assumes that this is talking about daimah l'cha, that he's daimah to him in not being a mamzer. So the Gemara, the Dilma Hasa Mishum Shechina, maybe over there was just because of the Shechina. That's why it was required that they not be Bali Mum, than not being mamzer. But because Moshe Rabbeinu was inviting them to join him in hearing directly from the Shechina. Ela Amar of Nachva Yitzchak Amakrov and Nasu Itcha b'dayim Malach Lahevi. There says Nasu Itcha together. That when, like Rashi said, when Yisrael was machalik the judges to be shayftim, it's not over there. It was not talking about Shechina. It was just designating they should help out Moshe. So that's not talking about. It's not talking about someone who's really subject to Shechina. And even so, we said it can't be a mamzer. Okay, we'll stop over here.
Right, thank you. Have a great
Look,
day.
the Taisus asked what we were asking. And you see, Itcha b'daimel apagav demi Itcha nami have a shaykh lemute balmum. The Moshe la balmum hava. He was the balmum. Kedamim perkei lemumin. Imkena asisu leMoshe balmum. Mikol makam lehaya mistabel lemidrash Itcha lahaki. Ilah mishum dechsev umum einbach. Mum einbach, you could say it means a physical mum. Itcha, to say when you don't mention them, to say it's not likely that it means a mum mamish. That's what Taisa says. That's the answer to your question. Is he's trying to answer.